What facts have you managed to establish about what really happened to that jet?
Well, I mean, at this point, there's still two competing theories about what exactly caused the downing of the plane. One is that there was, in fact, a bomb on board, and this is the sort of narrative that the official investigation is kind of trying to gravitate towards. And the other one was that there was a air-to-air or ground-to-air missile that struck the plane. This was corroborated by some of the evidence, some of the witnesses who reported two loud bangs just before the plane went down. I would expect that a bomb is the more likely scenario, although we're still waiting for any visual evidence of that. What should be noted is that the perimeter of the crash was protected, and nobody was allowed to go in there, not even local policemen from the area where it crashed, until the FSB, the Domestic Security Agency, arrived later that night.
Mm.
And essentially, they've been trying to prevent any leakage of information at this point. But Russia today is so leaky that I'm pretty sure that in the next couple of days, there will be very, very concrete piece of evidence that will make it easy for us to establish what exactly happened to it.
Mm.
But one way or another, it was an explosive, either external or internal, that downed it.
Right, and you've been so excellent at picking up on these leaks and piecing it all together. I'm sure that we'll be back to you very shortly with all the information on that. But what we can be pretty much 100% certain, can we, that Prigozhin is dead, despite this second plane that he sometimes used?
Yes, there's no conspiracy possible that would contain the information if he were alive. And there's, I mean, even with the deviousness of himself and of the Russian security services, again, in today's leaky environment, it's not possible that he's alive. Everybody, including his relatives, believe that he's dead, and I think we should just take it for what it appears to be.
Mm. It is extraordinary, though, that so many senior Wagner figures all got on the same plane. That would normally be something that they wouldn't do, isn't it?
Well, I mean, you would expect that, but the three top leaders of Wagner, which includes Prigozhin himself, Mr. Utkin, the guy who gave Wagner the name Wagner, that was his nickname or call sign, and the head of security, Valery Chekalov, they always travel together, in fact, especially on international flights, just because Prigozhin would never travel without the protection of the head of security, who's also the head of the rear operations of Wagner. So it's not so surprising that the three of them flew together, especially because they were just returning from a tour of Africa. And that tour of Africa was kind of also necessitated because Prigozhin needed to reestablish control over several of the countries that he was seen as the godfather of the local
Mm.
dictators. And this international trip is what resulted in the domestic trip of the three together, and that's what caused them the decapitation of Wagner in one swoop.
Well, we've seen these little impromptu shrines to Prigozhin and the other Wagner figures now presumed dead. Are those devotees of the group going to be a sort of source of growing instability in Russia? And do you think, given that many believe Putin was acting out of weakness, do you think we're seeing the beginning of the end of the Putin regime, or is it premature to think about that?
Well, again, this is a purely analytical observation of mine based on no facts. But I expected that exactly this would happen. I expected that the weakening of Prigozhin of Putin's regime would bring an attempted coup by Prigozhin. That happened, and I also estimated that in the wake of that failed coup, Putin would be put between a rock and a hard place where we would have to either assassinate Prigozhin to not appear weak, but in doing that, he would create a whole new class of distrust to him from the top elite of the generals who thought that Putin had reached some sort of an agreement with Prigozhin after the failed coup, and that agreement is not honored. So Putin went for the rock, but now he's in a hard place because of this distrust that now the elite would have to him, especially the military elite. And I expect that this military elite would, in the next few months, try to instrumentalize exactly the people from Wagner who are now left jobless or forced to join the army, but they have a disdain to Putin, who killed their leader, and sooner or later they'll be used as for another coup attempt. But I would expect that next time it will be much more professionally organized.